good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our session on this Tuesday afternoon. So it's gone 4 o'clock, and we're about to start privacy and security features for your iPhone. So welcome and welcome. iStore Meets, of course. Thanks for joining us. It's a series of workshops and events which is brought to you by the iStore. Actually, we've got a whole lineup of workshops. So these are hosted by our best product trainers and industry experts to help you learn more about the products you love, so that you can connect and create, you can get fit, and also you can be more productive. The iStore Meets program covers a variety of topics now and also in the future. And these topics include fitness, productivity, education, creativity, and a whole lot more. So these, as you know, are hosted online, but also will be back in our iStores in the future. So please look out for that. In the meantime, please feel free to visit our website, which is mystore.co.za/meets, and you can book all kinds of workshops over there, and even set up a personal training session. Maybe if you want a one-on-one session with an iStore trainer, you can do that, or even technical support. So please go and check it out. We'd also love to interact with you today during the workshop, so please say hello in the chat panel. So you'll see there's a chat panel in your Zoom. Please say hi to us over there. And then also, if you have any questions, please make use of the Q&A panel. So you can pop any questions in there, and we'd love to get to.
I'm sorry, I got struggling on my line, so not sure if that was a hello to me or not.
Brett, yeah, hello Brett, actually welcome to our session. Maybe that's a good point. Let's make sure everyone can actually hear us nice and clearly. So it would help if maybe anyone can give us a quick heads up in the chat panel. If you can hear us nice and clearly, then please say hello. Talking about, okay everybody, hopefully that sounds better. I quickly changed my networks. I'm on Vodacom this time, so hope that makes all the difference. So if you can hear me nice and clearly, and that's already a few people are confirming, that is good news. Okay, so sorry about the little delay. I guess network's acting up a little bit today, but if that is better, then hopefully it was worth it, right? Okay, perfect. So as we were saying, we also have a questions and answer session. So if anyone has any questions, please make use of the Q&A panel, and then we'll definitely try and get to your questions as we go through the session. Last thing before we get started is also take note that we do have a monthly competition, and we're giving away 1,500 Rand iStore gift card. So to enter, please post a picture of your setup while watching this workshop today. Take a quick pic of your computer, your iPad, whatever it might be, and then you can post that on Facebook and Instagram with the hashtag iStore Meets. You can also post other things, by the way. If you want to post a great illustration, maybe you've done an iPad, or maybe even a photo you've taken on iPhone, you can post all of those, and we'd love to see what you are learning. Just be aware that, or be aware rather, that Instagram and Facebook stories, unfortunately, are not entered into the competition. So with that being said, and a slight delay, let's kick things off. So hello everybody. Let me turn on my camera real quick so you can also see me. There we go. Oh, hello. My name is Marius. So nice to have everyone on our call this afternoon. I'm also joined this afternoon by Brett. Hello, Brett. How are you doing? Hopefully you can hear me nice and clearly this time.
Finally, yeah. Hello, Marius. Yeah, hope you're well, and thanks very much for having me this afternoon.
Okay, perfect. So of course, today we're talking about privacy and security features for your iPhone. So Brett joins us. He is from the AICD, which is the Advanced Institute of Cyber Defense. So yeah, let's get started. So we've got quite a few people on the call, so welcome everybody. And I guess we'll start maybe with a quick statement in terms of your iPhone and security. So luckily you made a good choice, right? So iPhones are built to be secure. They are built with security and privacy in mind. And yeah, you get to control exactly what you share. And these are some of the things we're going to explore during the session today. Luckily, because Apple makes the hardware and the software, it means this whole device is kind of secure from the ground up. That being said, though, it's only secure, I guess, essentially as as the user allows it to be. So for instance, I like the analogy of having a very safe house where you got all the security installations, but potentially if you leave the front door open, you will open yourself to some risks, right? So these are some of the things that we'll be covering in our session today. And we can actually kick off with like 4 basics. We got 4, I guess, fundamentals when it comes to security and privacy. And these are things essentially that everyone should be doing on their phones. They might be quite, I think, obvious for a lot of you, and hope you all are doing them already. But let's start with them, and then we'll jump into some additional things. So let's go into the 4 things. So the first one is about passcodes, right? So the obvious one. When you start up your phone, when you maybe had your phones for sleep or at sleep on your desk or something, you'll put in a passcode. Quite often, you might have a 4-digit passcode or even a 6-digit passcode. So I guess you've got an older phone, it might still be on 4, so it's probably a good idea to take it to 6. So essentially, if you take it to 6 digits at least, that creates a million different combinations in terms of what someone would have to guess in terms of getting your passcode. Brett, these ones are quite simple, I guess, in terms of passcodes, but are there anything we should be looking out for in terms of creating good and strong passcodes to secure our devices?
Yeah, thanks, Mario. Simple, but absolutely key. So, first of all, variety is essential. So make sure you use or we certainly advise people to use a variety of letters, numbers, capital letters, and the longer you can make your passwords, the better. Certainly, the more secure it is. Stay away from using your first 6 digits of your ID number or your daughter or son's birth dates or something like that. Try and stay away from some of the obvious numbers and passwords.
Yeah, I guess so. So you'll also see actually on your screen, if you want to take security almost to the max, what you can also do is you can skip the digit altogether and actually can create a custom alphanumeric code, which means you can put in a phrase or a sentence or like a random couple of words, right? So essentially, this will make it even more secure in terms of just the number of characters you use firstly, but also that's not something that anyone would guess easily. There's a convenience factor though, so obviously just keep in mind you might have to input this from time to time. So it's something you'll have to just remember, quite important, right? So we said there's 4 kind of basics, and the second one is also about unlocking your device, and this talks about using Touch ID and Face ID. So yeah, luckily these provide intuitive and secure authentication, and really it's with a touch of your finger or really just a glance at your phone, right? I think what's important to realize here is that your fingerprint data is, or your face data is converted into a mathematical hash or representation. And this is encrypted on your phone. It's stored in a little place called the secure enclave. And yeah, what's good about this? It can't be accessed by Apple. It's not stored on servers or backed up to iCloud, which means it only lives on your device. And again, this is quite convenient, right? Because you don't have to type in long passwords necessarily. You can simply glance at your device. I think what's cool here is because Apple takes security so seriously, they're not going to roll out a feature if they're not really convinced on its security. So for instance, Face ID, you can't unlock it with just like a picture of yourself. Some other devices might be fooled, but not an iPhone. So you can definitely be assured to use Face ID that it is definitely secure. So we are talking about a couple of important ones. The third one is, I guess, about software, making sure you've always got the latest software on your device. Current version is version 13.4.1, if anyone is checking their software. And I guess what's important here is that Apple allows software updates for multiple generations of their devices. So even going back to all the way to like an iPhone 6S, right, or the iPhone SE first edition, these devices can still run iOS 13, essentially giving all those users updates and security updates. Brett, is this something that you kind of live by in terms of always having your phone up to date?
I do, and very, very important, Maurice, because often these updates, sometimes relatively small updates, include security patch updates, so security updates, and therefore, if you are not someone who constantly checks for these updates, then we recommend that you turn it on and automatically update your phone, ideally when you're in a Wi-Fi area. But if you don't want that to take place, then make sure you actually check for updates on a regular.
Yep, that makes sense. Essentially, if you turn on that option, it'll do this usually at night when your phone is plugged into power and also on Wi-Fi. So it's not going to do this randomly in the day. And I guess it's important because sometimes it's a cat and mouse game, right? So the hackers and all the guys are out there trying to get into your phone. You know, they're trying to find new ways to get in. But because Apple makes the hardware and the software, like we said earlier on, they can more quickly and more easily update all the devices once there's any security issues that are discovered. So it's important to kind of be up to date, like you said. And then the last, I guess, one of the four key ones is using two-factor authentication. And this one, I think, specifically talks about your Apple ID. So this is kind of the entry point to your device, right? It's like the key to your whole Apple ecosystem. So why would you want to use two-factor authentication? It's essentially a great way to keep your information safe because it adds a second layer of security to your device. And it's essentially designed to ensure that someone, even if they know your password, they still can't access your accounts, right? So maybe everyone can let us know in the chat panel, do you have two-factor authentication turned on? And if you don't, what you can also do, if you look at the bottom of your screen towards the left, you'll see actually where you can go to do this. You need to go to settings, username, which will be your iCloud name usually. And then there's an option for password and security. And this is where you can turn this on. So we definitely recommend this as a way to keep your device as secure as possible. So those are some of the basics, right? Making sure you got strong passcodes. You set up two-factor authentication. Once you got those done, I think we can move along, right? And now we want to talk a little bit about controlling what you share. Because maybe just as important as making sure your device is kind of locked down, also you might be sharing things inadvertently that is giving away maybe some private information. And it's important to kind of know how to then make sure you control what you share. So we've got a few of these to look at, and we'll move on to, I think, some additional tips after this. But we'll start with this one here, which is you can go into settings, and in privacy, you'll see the setting on your iPhone. And what you see, there's a whole list of things, right? You'll see location services, contacts, calendars, reminders, photos, Bluetooth, right? And essentially what you can do on all of these services, hold on, then it's just, apologies, my phone. You can actually turn on things like your microphone and your photos on a per app basis, which means only the apps that you allow have access to different services. Especially important one there is location services, the one right at the top. And obviously location services is a powerful way that apps can help you make your device, I guess, more useful, right? Things like, think about maps apps and these things, but also location in terms of privacy is quite an important thing, right? You don't want to be kind of making apps having access to your location if they don't need to. Brett, what do you suggest here in terms of should people be allowing most apps to have access to these things, or how often should we be checking these things? Or what is your advice from the AICD side?
Yeah, thanks, Maurice. Again, it's something I do and something we do recommend our clients as well, is to constantly check the apps that you have on your phone, installed on your phone, and just check what access they have to your location services and to your point, to Bluetooth and possibly your camera as well. There's a question you can ask. Why do they need access to these particular functions? And if you're comfortable with the answer, then great. But if you're not, or if you've got a question mark around the access to your camera, etc., then we recommend that you turn that off. We also advise that when you do update an app, is just do a health check on your on the app itself, and actually just go and check the settings to make sure nothing's reverted back to its original settings.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And essentially, once you head over to here, so if you go into your privacy location services, and you find any of those apps, for instance, you can actually change it to 3 different settings, right? You'll see there's one that says ask next time, which is probably a good one in terms of knowing what's happening on your device. So every time, let's say, an app wants to use location, you'll ask and then you'll have to approve it, right? There's another one which says while using, which means essentially whenever the app is open, it'll have access to your location, and then obviously you can turn it off altogether. So yeah, I guess think about the apps like Brett's saying, and does it make sense? Like something like a Maps app, again, like Waze or Google Maps or Apple Maps, for instance. Obviously, they need your location to track your route. But for anything else, it's probably a good idea to have it on ask next time, which means you'll actually know when these apps are requesting your location data, right? Moving along to maybe also, we're talking about things you share, and quite often this is one that gets overlooked. So notifications, right? So these arrive on your phone. Maybe someone sends you a message, or maybe if you think about privacy, there might be even OTPs that come over message, right, over SMS. So by default, your phone will show these to whoever's looking at your phone. So a nice thing to change on your phone is if you go into notifications and then to show previews, you can change this, especially if you've got a Face ID enabled phone. You can change this to only when unlocked, which means only when you glance at your phone will those messages actually pop up. So imagine sitting around a table maybe, and your phone is on the table. If you're not looking at your phone necessarily, right, and the message comes through, someone else might be looking, and again, there's a concern there. But in this case, you can change the setting to not have those messages always on your phone. Or maybe just stepping away for a second, someone picks up your phone and they can go through your notifications, and they can actually kind of quickly see all the things that came in, let's say, in the last couple of hours, right? So that's definitely one to go and check out. And then I guess staying on the topic of location services, I want you to think about quickly photos and location, right? So essentially, if you're sharing photos with anybody, you might want to keep in mind that that photo also has got some metadata attached to it. And there's a whole bunch of stuff on there, right? In terms of like the camera you use, the lens you use, for instance, your iPhone, the aperture, all these things. But also it's got your location data in your photo. So if you're sharing photos, for instance, with friends and family, usually it's not a concern. If you're sharing photos with other people, just be aware that your location data might travel along with the photos. So how do you change this, right? If you go into your Photos app and you navigate pretty much to any photo, and you tap on the share button, that's usually how most people would share their photos. What you'll see right on the top of the screen, there's a blue options button. And essentially, if you click on that options button, what you'll see is the next screen here. You can see this is where you can then turn on and off a couple of features. And then one of them you'll see there is location. So essentially, if you are concerned, you can turn this off before you share your photo. And I guess the example here is maybe you're sharing photos of your dogs, right? Which are obviously in your house. So essentially you're sharing location of your house if you share this with someone that you don't necessarily know that well. So this is definitely one to be aware of. It's a little option that you don't, I think most people probably have missed it. It's quite small, but it's definitely there. So definitely make sure you go and check it out. Yeah, we've spoken about quite a few options built into the phone. I think we can also talk about a few third-party apps. So in this case, we can start with Facebook, right? I think most people probably use Facebook. You guys can let me know, maybe quickly raise your hand if you use Facebook on a daily basis. I think most of you probably jump into Facebook at some point. And what we're advising here is that if you are on Facebook, that's fine, but just make sure you actually use it in the app and not in the browser. So if you're using Facebook in the browser, you're actually opening yourself up to a bit of a snooping essentially by Facebook. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's like a URL there on Facebook's help pages essentially. And what they say there is if you log onto Facebook and you visit a website with a like button, which is probably a lot of websites, right? Your browser sends us information about your visit, right? So from a privacy point of view, I think it's a good idea to head over to your Safari web browser, just go to facebook.com and check if you're logged in, because I think a lot of people will be surprised to find that they logged in maybe one day. Randomly they logged in and they never logged out, and essentially they were logged in ever since. So definitely log out and then make sure you rather use the Facebook app, right? If you're using an app, by the way, that is a better idea because apps are sandboxed essentially in the Apple ecosystem, which means they can only really access their own information in their little sandbox, and they can't kind of play outside of that little sandbox. So Facebook, as we know, is something to go and check out. And then I guess the same applies to Google. I don't know how many of you use Google or Google Apps, and I'm sure most people do. But something to be aware of is actually just head over to Safari one more time and then go to, I don't know, gmail.com or YouTube or any of the Google services. And yeah, just see if you're logged in already, because the same thing applies. If you're logged in already on your browser, it means you can, if you want to look on the screen, there's all the things that Google can track from you, right? So you might be surprised to know that Google could track all these things from you just by being logged in. So again, the suggestion here is to, when possible, make use of apps like the Gmail app for your mail versus using it in the browser. YouTube, all those things. They're quite often apps for all of those services. So yeah, Brett, here's an interesting one. So we're talking about Google and I guess using Google as a search engine, but there's also some alternatives to Google. And this one here is called DuckDuckGo. Is there something you use? What can you tell us about DuckDuckGo?
So this is my default browser now. I do really enjoy its functionality, and I think from a privacy perspective, Morris, the reason why I really enjoy this is because it doesn't track any of my search. It doesn't keep my search history. Essentially, every time I use it as a browser, it treats me as if I'm a brand new customer, essentially. So yeah, we really enjoy it from a security perspective.
Yep, that's pretty cool. So I guess this is again one of those additional steps. If anyone wants to take their privacy almost to the next level, you can then change. And if you want to make this change, you can go ahead to settings, Safari, and you can see there's a search engine option. And the usual suspects are there, right? You can change it between Google and Bing, but you'll see there's one called DuckDuckGo, so you can actually enable this, which means, yeah, Google is not going to actually be involved at all in terms of any of your searching habits, I guess. So DuckDuckGo is a privacy-focused company, and that's good to know if you want to make that change. So definitely, again, something to look out for. And talking about browsing, because yeah, we're talking about things you share, like, and just what people are able to track from, let's say, your browsing habits. There's actually also an option on iPhone that you can install content blockers. So this is pretty cool. You can actually head over to the App Store and you can see there's a couple you can download. So essentially, in addition to Safari, like doing cross-site blocking, or prevention. So essentially, what a lot of these advertisers will do is if you are browsing from site to site, actually they'll track that. And they'll know the site that you've just been to, and that'll build a bit of history in terms of like your web activity. So by default, Safari tries to block that, but you can take that a step further by installing a content blocker, and you can see you can turn that on if you go again to where it says at the bottom of the screen. But yeah, in addition to blocking ads, right? So that's also quite a neat feature. You'll have Let's ads on your whatever site you visit. But also, it's going to block any social-based trackers or ad-based trackers, and these things will obviously make your browser experience, I think, a bit cleaner even, because you're not going to have all those things happening in the background. So yeah, a few more things to cover, I think, in terms of your talking about your privacy and just what you share. And this one is about WhatsApp, right? So WhatsApp, actually, everyone will know you've got a profile photo, like most people like to put their own photo up there, obviously. But think about maybe just all the places that you actually store your number, leave your number. Think about the registers online that you fill in and you put your number on those places. Essentially, what anyone can do is they can take that number and they can go into WhatsApp, and they can actually access your profile photo, right? So they can put almost a face to your number. So that's something you want to change, I think, is probably a good idea, and to make that available to your context only. And the reason we're saying this is, and this is a real example, is someone I know, for instance, that they had their profile photo kind of hacked in that way. And then this new person, or this scammer, I guess we can call them, started reaching out to this person's contacts. And they said, hi, this is my new number, and there's a photo of them already. And they're trying to trick people, obviously, into either giving money or whatever the case might be. But the point is, you can turn this off. Brett, I think WhatsApp also has two-factor authentication. I think WhatsApp essentially is so widely used. Is that a good idea? Is that something that you turned on?
Yes, it is, Morris, and it's actually a great feature. There's another feature, funny enough, which I also really enjoy, which it says show security notifications. And it just happened to me about half an hour ago. I've got a group of friends that are on a group chat, and I got a notification on the group chat that my friend had changed his security code on his WhatsApp. And immediately I sent him an SMS to say, have you got a new phone, or have you reinstalled WhatsApp? Because that's really what it means. And what's great about this particular feature is that it will indicate if this person's reinstalled WhatsApp and that. And what we kind of allude to that is if somebody does steal your phone, they insert your SIM card into a new phone, they can pretend that they essentially are you and start communicating with you under the presence that, preference that you are that person. So yeah, that's a fantastic feature to also turn on as well.
Okay, I think that is good advice. So what you might find actually, there's a lot of apps out there that support two-factor authentication, and potentially you need to maybe just have a look at just which of those make sense, and you can turn on the ones that do make sense. Again, you want to kind of weigh up the convenience versus security. Something like WhatsApp, I think, is something that is kind of widely used, so it's probably a good idea to make that as secure as you can, right? So yeah, we started with a couple of, I think, basics in terms of, just making sure your devices are locked down, essentially. We talked quite a bit in terms of just controlling what you share in terms of your location data, maybe some app sharing data, maybe just browsing the web and there's, some things that you're sharing inadvertently. We're going to move along now, maybe just talk about some additional tips and tricks in terms of just being as secure and as savvy as possible. I know we're not traveling as much as at the moment as we used to, right? So you're not going to airports necessarily often, but possibly let's have a look at some of these things so that when we do start to travel a bit more, and even for our, I guess, our browsing at home, we can just be as secure as possible. And the first one is, I guess, probably one of the biggest ways that people hack into people's devices, right? And it's called phishing. So, there was I think some time ago, there were some celebrities that had let's say their iCloud account hacked. And essentially it was at no fault of Apple necessarily, because they had protected the device. But if someone engineers a way to get into your device by finding your password, right, then essentially they can still access your information. So phishing is something I think we'll focus on for a little bit. And Brett, from your side on the AICD, what are you guys seeing at the moment in terms of phishing? Is it still quite a big trend?
Very much so. If anything, it's increasing during this time. So, what we do know is that these malicious organizations or people, try and use pandemics like COVID-19 to access information. So you may or may not have received emails already, asking you to click on a particular link or fill out a particular form that relates to COVID-19. We highly recommend that you don't click on these links or fill out any forms if they come from an email address or source that you do not recognize. If you are looking for any information on COVID-19 or anything for that matter, try and go to a reliable, recognized source like the WHO website or something like that. So we often see, during times like we are in now, a significant increase in phishing attacks.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So essentially, if we had to define phishing, it refers to fraudulent attempts to get personal information from you, such as your Apple ID, maybe your password, some credit card information, and these are usually through text message or email. And actually, we've got a few examples here of what this looks like, so just everyone is 100% clear on what we're talking about. So essentially, we're saying never click on links that come through emails or text messages requesting you information from you. Don't ever provide things like passwords, verification codes, or any other sensitive account information over email or messages. This one here, as you can see on the screen, it says kindly click on this link to update your secure Luno account, right? So this one was quite easy to spot because I didn't have a Luno account, right? But if you had one, potentially the question is like, would you have been caught out and clicked on that link? So obviously they send it bulk to as many people as they can. Especially in terms of Apple IDs, we said Apple IDs are quite important because this is like the key into your whole Apple universe, right? So people quite often would like to get into your Apple IDs, and especially if your phone is stolen or lost. So Apple has implemented something that's called activation lock, which essentially what this does is if you ever had to lose your phone, essentially it makes it worthless for anyone else, right? They can't do anything with your phone. Even if they wipe the device completely and reinstall the software, once they start it up for the first time, it'll again ask you for a password, right? So that's called activation lock. So what these people then do is they try and get you to think that Apple is contacting you and pretend to be Apple, and then obviously want to get your personal information. I think we've got a couple of more examples. Here's one, I think, that came in by email. This one pretends to be from APSA in terms of your credit card statement or something, right? Usually with a link to click on. So yeah, definitely, I think the advice is be very, very careful and kind of just be aware that you never click on these links to enter any kind of a sensitive information. Talking about going to websites that are secure, something to look at, and if you look on the screen at the moment, you'll see there's a little circle around the address bar there where FNB's address is typed in. And you can see there's two things. Firstly, you'll notice that it's green, right? And secondly, you'll notice there's a padlock that's also green, right? So these couple of things show you things about this website security. So essentially that encryption icon indicates that the website is using HTTPS protocol, which is the encryption. And also there's a digital identity for certificate. And it's going to encrypt the information. So there's two kind of icons you can look out for here. So there's a gray icon, right? So if you actually see a gray icon on the website that you're going to, it indicates that it's got a standard certificate. And if you have a green icon like this one here on FNB, it's got an EV certificate, which is the more extensive identity verification. So essentially what you want to look out for is a green one, especially if you're going to like banking, financial, any kind of websites that really are supposed to be quite secure. You look out for a green one. Most websites will probably have a gray one by default because most of the web is kind of implementing encryption these days. But sometimes you might find that a website doesn't have any encryption. So if you look at the next screen, you'll see that one says not secure, right? So actually Safari will tell you if you're on a website that's not secure. I don't think it's something to be alarmed at or alarmed with. So it's just something that you need to notice. So what you don't want to do is be entering any information on a website, for instance, that is not secure, because essentially there is no encryption at all, right? So just be aware of that. Yeah, let's move along. And I guess passwords are a big part. We spoke right in the beginning about putting a password on your device, right? So that's one thing that you need to do well. But then we've got so many of these services, right? I think the average person will probably have maybe up to 100 different accounts that they maybe have built up over the years. Brett, maybe similar question than earlier, like when you're creating passwords, like what are we looking at in terms of making sure that we stay secure for all these different passwords that we're creating?
Yeah, I think this is a great one, Morris, to activate a keychain. It automatically generates a password for you, and I think it's very secure. There are some generic ones as well. You can use ones like 1Password as well, which is a very popular one. So absolutely, I think if you can, absolutely make use of.
Okay, so in this case, there's actually something built into the iPhone. It's called iCloud Keychain. And it means whenever you go to a website that you're going to be entering your information into, actually it will suggest a really strong password. You can see actually an example there. It's like a whole bunch of numbers and digits and dashes and whatnot. And essentially it's not something you're going to ever remember, right? So your phone will do the hard work for you. It'll kind of remember that and store it into your iCloud keychain, right? So iCloud keychain is then encrypted. And this is also then available on your other devices. So this one is especially handy, I think, if you've got multiple devices. So even if you have an iPad and a Mac, for instance, you can access your iCloud keychain across all those devices and never have to actually worry about a password again. As long as you obviously have your phone unlocked, you'll be able to access like certain websites and services. Like Brett said, there's also some third-party apps like this. So if anyone is interested, you can go and have a look at them. I think you mentioned 1Password there, Brett, is one of the third-party ones to go and look out for. So
that's right, yeah.
There's also something new. So talking about signing into services, and there's something actually called Sign In with Apple. So this came out not too long ago. This is part of the iOS 13 update. And Apple has actually now started giving you the option to not create a password at all, right? But to use their sign-in method, right? Brett, obviously, this has been around for a while in terms of you can sign in with Google, sign in with Facebook. Like, why would Apple's be any different then? Why should people then trust using this one?
Yeah, I think if you look at Google, if you look at Facebook, they're driven by ads. And with Apple, they're very much about security, and they take their security aspects incredibly seriously. So this is still relatively new. I'm certainly not seeing it on every single app yet. Morris. I don't know if you can confirm that. It's not on every app, but when I do see it, I'm certainly using the function, and it works. It works great. And as I say, because I'm a big believer in the Apple ecosystem, that takes security very, very seriously. I'm very confident signing in with this particular feature.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, if I go to the next screen here, what you'll see is a screenshot of some of the things that make signing with Apple, so convenient. Is firstly, it's fast and easy. But secondly, Apple respects your privacy, and also they'll hide your email. And this is interesting, right? This is not something that the other guys are doing. So for instance, when you sign up, let's say for Dropbox, like in this example, actually Dropbox will never get your email address, right? You've actually got the option to turn this on and off, but you can turn on the option for them not to get your email address, which means whenever they're sending you, let's say, I don't know, information, newsletters, it'll still arrive because Apple is forwarding to you. Because they actually generated like just a random email address that they gave to them instead. But what's nice about this, think about how this will then work. If you then cancel, let's say, your subscription to Dropbox, and you say, okay, well, I've tried it out. I don't want to necessarily continue with my subscription. Essentially, then Dropbox has no information about you, right? So they never had your email address to start off with. And even if you leave, they won't have it, right? So I think that's very enticing. And that's something that I think that Apple is really doing well in terms of making sure that your privacy is still respected. So definitely something to go check out. I think you asked in terms of how widely used it is. We're seeing it more and more. So more apps are doing this, and Apple has actually put in place, I guess, a bit of a deadline. So all app developers will have to implement this at some stage. So at some stage, you'll hopefully see this on every single app, that you have the option to sign in with Apple. So that's pretty cool. So, I guess we're talking about counts and passwords. And again, I think like we mentioned a second ago, literally for, let's say, the last 10 plus years, potentially people have been creating passwords online, right? So essentially you've got like a database of username and passwords that's all linked to you. And especially if you've not been doing this well, you might have been using the same password, let's say for different services. So there's actually a great service out there, and this one is called, there's a few of them, but this one particularly is called haveibeenowned.com. It's spelled, as you can look at the bottom, with a PWNED. Brett, have you used this? What have you found in terms of checking some of your email addresses?
Yeah, I was quite surprised the first time I went onto this, Morris, and I realized that two of the services that I do use, there was a breach on my account. One was LinkedIn, funny enough, and the other one, Dropbox, your previous example. So immediately I went into both of those services. I changed my password, and I now, again, periodically just go on into my email addresses that I have, both my personal and my work addresses, just to make sure that there are no further breaches on any of the services that I do use. So highly recommended to actually go and do a bit of a health check on your email addresses.
Yep. I think that's good. So for anyone on this call, you might want to head over to this website, maybe just pop in your email address and then see what comes up, right? So in my case, what I did, I kind of did the same, and I found that actually one of my accounts was also breached. And this was a Stereokinecore account. And again, same thing, I could then actually just do a quick little check to make sure obviously everything is all right. But I think what you want to consider here is your phone might be very secure, right? So you've got this really secure phone. Apple is protecting your data. But because you're putting passwords on all kinds of websites, if that website gets hacked, essentially your username and password of those websites could leak. And then if you're using that in other services as well, really opening yourself up to potential issues around your privacy as well. So it's definitely something to kind of keep a track of. So that's a good one. SIM-PIN, right? We're continuing with some tips and tricks in terms of making sure your device is as secure as possible. And SIM-PIN is one of those, I'd say, overlooked ones. Brett, I don't know, what can you tell us about setting a SIM-PIN?
Turn it on, turn it on. A lot of people think that their passcode is all that they need to secure their phone, Marius. But, again, what happens if your phone does get stolen or you lose your phone, and you haven't got your SIM card protected with a PIN? Somebody could take that SIM card out, insert it into another phone, and whatever information you've got stored on your PIN, you can start accessing some very, very, very important information. So if you haven't already, we highly recommend that you do activate your SIM PIN.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense, right? Because someone can get your phone, put your SIM card in another phone, and then they'll get your OTPs, right? I mean, that's what could happen. So good. I think this maybe a little tip here is if you're like me and I haven't had this on for a long time, and then when I went to change it to turn it on, just kind of keep in mind it will ask you for your original SIM pin. So if you don't have that handy, just be aware that you might actually block yourself out of your cellular data, and you might have to reach out to your cellular provider to help you out there. But definitely want to go and turn on. Let's move along because we're talking about just being savvy out there, and this one I think is also quite a key one, right? Connecting to public and open Wi-Fi. So essentially, whenever you are traveling, whenever we are traveling again, you find there's Wi-Fi everywhere, right? You go to Sandton City, you go to, I don't know, the V&A waterfront, you go to the airport, you even go to a restaurant just down the road. There's like a Wi-Fi network, right? So Brett, you're saying we shouldn't be connecting to these?
No, again, Morris, these networks aren't secure. And we refer to a man in the middle attack. So often what happens, I wouldn't say often, but there's certainly a number of cases around this where an individual, a malicious individual, will be sitting on this particular network and will intercept the data that you are sharing over this particular network. So again, if you are forced to join one of these networks, we either recommend you do it through a virtual private network, a VPN, which I think you're going to talk about a bit later. But again, if you are going to join these networks, then don't do any online shopping, don't access your online banking or anything like that, just in case there is somebody intercepting your data.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because essentially you don't know what you're connecting to, right? So if you look on the screen there, it says airport Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi, right? That could be anyone. It doesn't mean it's the actual shop that's accessing their Wi-Fi. It could be a random person that just made that network and you're connecting to their network, right? So essentially, you don't know what you're accessing. So it's something to be careful about. So I think you're right. So what we're suggesting here is rather to use your cellular data, right? So if you've got cellular data, make use of that. If you don't have cellular data necessarily and you have to use the Wi-Fi, then there's other things you can do like connecting using a VPN. We'll talk about that next. But also there's a great feature in your iPhones, which is it's got eSIM functionality built in, right? So from a couple of years ago, Apple started giving us options to have two SIM options. One is the SIM card that we all know and use. The other one is an eSIM, right? So especially if you're traveling, and think about this, you're going to, I don't know, like foreign airports, and again, not at the moment, but in the future. What you can do is you can use that eSIM functionality built into your phone already to essentially hook up to, let's say, a prepaid package, maybe from, let's say, Vodafone in the UK, and you can continue to use cellular data even when your own SIM card is still in the phone as well. So that's really a really awesome feature. So yeah, Brett, you were talking about VPNs a second ago. Yeah, what is a VPN, and is there any ones that we should be looking out for? Like, are there good ones and better ones? I don't know. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so Morris, essentially a VPN allows you to create a secure connection to another network over the internet. So allows you to connect to the to Wi-Fi, but through a very secure connection. There are a couple that we highly recommend, and these change all the time. So some popular ones, and I think some ones we certainly recommend: ExpressVPN, CyberGhost is another one, and it all depends what you're looking for. Are you looking for cost-effective one, or are you looking for one that's kind of a fastest VPN? Other ones that we recommend as well, Ultra VPN. All of these are available on the App Store. So again, but do some research before you are going to use a VPN. Try and stay away from the free ones. They are becoming more and more cost-effective as well. So if you are connecting to these free Wi-Fi's, a lot, then they highly recommend you use the VPN.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is, again, one of those maybe a little bit more advanced things. So it might not be for everybody, but for someone really that has, secure information on their device and they are traveling, for instance, and this is something they can definitely use. I think like Greg said, avoid the free ones, right? Rather go for a reputable one. So that's, I think, quite important. And then maybe lastly, you might already have access to a VPN that you don't know, right? So many businesses actually in corporates have VPN access. So for instance, if you can connect back to the office using a VPN, essentially using a VPN already, right? So you can then also use this VPN, not just when you want to connect to the office Wi-Fi, not to the Wi-Fi, but to office network. but you can even do this just when you are, let's say, traveling. You can just turn on that VPN because it will also secure your traffic. And that is obviously a great thing to do. So yeah, let's move along. And thanks, I see you posted a couple there in the chat as well. One of the final things we want to talk about, and this is available on pretty much all our iOS devices, right, iPads and iPhones, is enabling Find My iPhones. You want to make sure this is turned on because this is going to help you to find potentially connected or stolen devices. And Find My also is a great way to protect your privacy, right? Because you can see where a device is on the map and also where it's been. And also it will improve your chances of recovering a device if it was stolen. And then I think more importantly, if you can't get access to your device again, so let's say you do realize, listen, you're not going to find the device ever, you can also then actually remotely erase it, right? So again, whatever information is on your device, you can then kind of pull that trigger and just kind of erase all that information remotely. Something that's new and something that's actually quite cool, because this used to be nice, but the device had to be online, right? So for you to find your device, you have to be either on Wi-Fi, obviously for this to find it somehow, or you had to have a SIM card in there. But there's something new actually that Apple is doing with this, which is actually even if your device is not online, so let's say someone takes out the SIM card and they turn off the Wi-Fi, actually it can still ping other iPhones around you or around where the phone is and still try and track the location, right? So that's pretty cool. So we definitely encourage you to make sure you go check out that Find My is turned on, and definitely let you kind of make use of this. So Brett, maybe you can quickly chat about some of the options in terms of what you're offering from the AICD side and also from iStore Business.
Thanks, Maurice. Yeah, so from our iStore Business perspective, we've got some fantastic solutions, security solutions for small to medium-sized businesses. I think on the next slide, my contact details are available. So please reach out if you are looking for any further advice around the security within your business. And then from an Institute of Advanced Cyber Defense, we do offer some end user training. We offer some cyber essentials training as well. So if this is a topic that you'd like to find out more about or get, increase your knowledge around cyber security, we've got some fantastic programs available as well. And again, please reach out to me if you've got any questions following today's session. You can contact me on cybersecure@myiStore.co.za. I'm happy to engage with you further. Thanks for the opportunity, Maurice.
Okay, no problem. So I think maybe essentially we've covered a whole bunch of stuff in terms of securing your device, controlling what you share, and also being savvy in terms of just the way that you, I think, connect your networks, etc. out there. So again, iPhones are built to be secure, so at least that's done, right? But also there's some responsibility, I think, on all of us to make sure we kind of handle our devices and connect in a secure way that also protects our privacy. So yeah, hopefully everyone has gotten a little something from the session. Maybe you can use it now or in the future, and just to make sure that you are as secure as you can be out there, because we know data and essentially personal data is like, yeah, that's kind of the next I guess frontier in terms of what people want, and also in terms of what people want to sell about you. So I think at this stage, all we can say is, yeah, thank you for attending our little session this afternoon. If there's any more questions, you are welcome to quickly use the chat panel or the Q&A section to post them there. But thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. And yeah, we hope you have a really awesome evening. Thank you, Brett, and have a good evening, you too.
Thanks very much, Maurice. Thanks for having me.